Hello everyone, Josh first, back at it again, bringing you guys some more 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross, and with the assistance of the GC database website, which I will have linked in the description below so you guys can check it out. It's very knowledgeable and will help you get started in the game, and will kind of help you with a lot of questions that you may have, and, kind of get you prepared for global release. So definitely check out the website. I would still even advise using it even after global release, because this website combined with guides from several YouTubers, you are going to have all the information that you possibly could want and more, and that's what we're all here for, right? But anyways, so we're going to be talking about some of the best SRs that you're going to be able to get on global fairly early in the game, like literally almost right out of the gate. Some of these characters will be available to you, and some of them you'll get them very soon after. And they're very, very strong. They are not to be underrated. SRs in this game are not to be pushed to the side. It's not all about SSRs in Grand Cross. So if you're a free-to-play player and you're thinking, man, I hope this game is free-to-play friendly and I hope I can get a strong team free-to-play, well, you actually can. And we're going to be talking about some of those units in today's video. And we're even going to slide in a couple of the free-to-play SSRs at the very end of the video so you guys can get even more excited. Okay, so we're going to be talking about red and green Hawk Elizabeth. That's what a lot of people like to call her and refer to, just Hawk Elizabeth. But if we want to be literal, it's Moving Pub Elizabeth. She is the red one. She's an SR. And we're going to go over her skills. Now, her unit rating that they gave her. Now, these unit ratings are based on the website, based on their feedback and stuff like that from several players, mostly veteran players. So you can take that as a good benchmark. It doesn't have to be absolute, but it is a good foundation to kind of get an understanding of where you can possibly utilize these characters. So, for example, she's going to be good against the red demon and the crimson demon, which is basically a green demon. It's not physically green, but that's what its typing is, if that makes sense. So, her first skill is Rolling Ham Attack. She has Rush, a single enemy with 200% of this unit's attack. Now, what Rush is basically it ignores defense, which is really, really cool. You can see it right here. Ignore defense. Rank 2, which would be silver. Rank 3, of course, would be gold with combining your cards. She will do Rush, a single enemy with 300% of this unit's attack. And then on rank 3, it'll be 500%. So a lot of damage coming out of her first skill. Now, her second skill starts out as an attack, but then at rank 2 and 3, it becomes an attack and debuff. So, very, very cool. Now, rank 1, she does 220% damage. Rank 2, she does 220% damage, while also not allowing the enemy to use buffing and debuffing skills for one turn. And on rank 3, she does the same thing with 360% damage, but she also picks up a strip. Removes all buffs from a single enemy. So, very, very good already. Single target damage and debuffing, stripping. She does a little bit of everything. And I know when you guys heard me say that Elizabeth is doing stripping, a lot of you perverts are taking it the wrong way. But, hey, it is what it is. And her ultimate, Final Pork Stomping, such a funny name. At skill level 1, you can max it up to skill level 6. Removes all stances from a single enemy, inflicts 700% of this unit's attack to the target. Now, the multiplier on this skill is 70%, which means from skill level 1, which is 700%, it can go up to 1050% at max skill level 6. And since this is a SR hero, it will not take you that long to pull enough copies of her to max her out, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're going to talk about that in later videos, which characters you might want to consider building up their ultimates, and some that you might want to save for the coin shop. So, she's definitely, obviously, since she is an SR, you'd want to go ahead and feed in her dupes. You're going to be utilizing this character fairly early in the game, and she's going to be super good against 2 of the 3 demons. So, what's not to love about her? She's amazing. Now, she also has linked characters that you can link to, that you can see where she gets percentages from over here as well when she's a UR. And since she is an SR, she's going to be significantly more cheaper to upgrade than a base SSR. So, even further reason to build her up. I mean, if you guys are looking for a free-to-play team that can get you to mid to late game, perhaps, she's definitely one of those units you might want to build around. She's super, super good. Her passive, if this unit does not receive any damage this turn, increase the base stat of this unit by 10% at the start of the next turn. Resets upon taking damage. So, very, very good. What's really interesting is you can even run her alongside of a unit that has somewhat of a taunt to basically take all the damage, completely ignoring her, and allow her to get her passive off. So that's something that you could do, just a little bit of the, team synergy that you could possibly build up. That's not something I'm saying that you need to do, but it's a cool thing if you're really wanting to get it, basically, like, for example, an additional 10% attack. So there you go. Very, very cool. She's a very strong unit. Moving on to the green one. The Mascot Elizabeth Hawk. She is, of course, green attribute. She is an SR as well. She's built more for PvP and PvE farming. She's a great farmer because she does have an AoE attack, which is very, very helpful if you're trying to do a lot of quick farms to build up a lot of resources and materials for whatever you're doing, obviously. Let's go ahead and do her passive first this time. Increases the HP-related stats of all allies by 10%, except for in PvP and Raid. But in PvE farming and stuff like that, it'll work perfectly fine, just not in PvP. Even though she's a PvP unit, which is kind of a little bit ironic, but hey, you can't win everywhere, otherwise some of these units would be just too strong, perhaps. So she has a super loin attack, rank 1, inflict 180% of this unit's attack to a single enemy, decrease the target's defense-related stat by 20% for 1 turn, which will be very good if you pair her up with a unit that has a really strong single target attack, especially if it's a nuking ability, because now there's going to be 20% less defense that you have to deal with. And then at rank 2, it's 180% as well, but it goes up to 30% defense down, and then at rank 3, it goes up to 300% attack, and 40% down, so almost half of their defense, which is really, really cool. Now, this is what makes her very, very good for farming. Super Hawk Illusion, penetrate, yeah, baby. Penetrate all enemies with 100% of this unit's attack. Now, what penetrate is it increases pierce rate by ×3. So whatever her pierce rate is, if you look here on the side stats, which I completely forgot to go over with the Red Elizabeth, you'll see that her pierce rate is 30%, so it becomes basically 90%. Just ridiculous. And at rank 2, it's 150%, and then rank 3, it's 250% of her attack. We also have the Ultimate with Fate. Final Pork Stomping, yet again, kind of similar to the red one. Removes all stances from a single enemy and inflicts 700% of this unit's attack. And then, of course, it also has a 70% multiplier, which goes up to 1,050%. So they both share the same ultimate between both the Elizabeths that we just talked about, which, again, it is a very good ultimate. Now, the green one has a base 320 attack at level 1 base stats. Of course, this is for SR, and it goes up to an SSR, up to a UR, and then, of course, all the way up to max level 80. So these stats will, of course, go way higher. I believe this one is attack 320 as well. So, yes, they are the same. HP is 3,800 on both. They actually might have the same base stats. I believe they do in all instances. Yes, I do believe so. Yeah. So they're basically identical, except one is red, one is green, and their skill 1 and skill 2s and passives are different. So both these units are amazing. You can't go wrong with either one. One's going to be great for doing mid to end game content, and the other one's going to be great for your generalized farming and PvP. So, again, 2 SRs, 2 amazing units, both free to play. Awesome. All right, now we have one of my personal favorites, and this guy is very, very popular. This might be one of the best SRs, if not maybe the best SR in the game. I don't know. I don't know if I have enough knowledge to, confidently say that he is the best SR in the game, but I feel like he could be, or he maybe already is. Let me know what you guys think that's been playing for a while in the comment section. Do you think this is the best SR perhaps in the game? I don't know, but his skill set is really, really good. So this is the SR Green Gill Thunder, the Knighthood Gill Thunder, which, by the way, Knighthood is what they call guilds in this game. If you look at his unit rating, it's off the charts. He's great in PvP. He's great in PvP geared and ungeared. Passive is great. He's good against the Crimson Demon. He's good against the Gray Demon, which would be the Blue Demon. And he's good against... He's not as good against the Red Demon, but he's still pretty good because of his buffing ability. So, he's good there, and even in farming, he's not... That's probably his weakest point, is farming. Because he lacks what you'd really want in PvP farming. Because PvP farming... you want to do a lot of penetration, you want to do a lot of AoE, stuff like that. You just basically want to go through it as quickly as possible. I feel like he might be a bit underrated in farming though, because his skill 1 honestly could be very good for PvE farming, to be honest. Like maybe he's a little bit, maybe they gave him a little bit of a underestimation on PvE farming, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe he's a little bit I don't know. I'll let you guys tell me what you think. But I think, yeah, I don't know. But let's go over his skill set anyway. So his passive, Magic Power of Thunder Emperor, just a badass name because it's Gill Thunder. He's got to have a cool name for everything. Increases the defense-related stats of all allies by 30% in PvP. So 30% defense increase on your entire party in PvP. Now, what's very interesting is your passives will still work even if they're not in the battlefield. So what I mean by that is if you're running your 4-man squad and you have your 3 main units and your sub-unit, your sub-unit's passive is still affecting your entire team even if he's not in the battle yet. So if you run, for example, Gill Thunder as a sub in your PvP team, expecting none of your units to even die, none of your core 3, they're all still going to be getting that 30% defense up in PvP. And that passive still working on your subs without them being in the fight is going to lead us into our next SR when we get there, which will be Kane, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So again, Gill is green, SR, he's good in pretty much everything. His skill 1, Lightning, burst all enemies with 100% of its units attack. Now remember what we talked about with burst before? Actually, no, we have not mentioned burst here before. Sorry. Increases damage to the target with buffs by 2 times. So if you're dealing with any enemies that have any kind of buffs, it's going to do 2 times the damage. On rank 2, it's 150%, and then on rank 3, it's 250% again. Wait, it's 150, then 250. I'm sorry. All right. His base stats as well, before we get to his second skill. Combat class, his CP is 2603, 300 attack, 210 defense, 3800 HP, 15% pierce rate, 5% resistance, regeneration 5%, crit chance 15, crit damage 160, crit resist 10, crit defense 10, recovery rate 120%. So there you go. Lightning Power at rank 1 increases the attack of all allies by 30% for 2 turns. Then it goes to 40%, and then it goes to 60% for 3 turns. So this, I believe, is where a lot of people consider him as being super, super good because he's an amazing buffer. Because if you get his rank 3, you're increasing all your allies' attack, including his own, by 60%. That is a big, big jump. And it's for 3 turns. So it's one of those cards that you can play and not have to spam it every turn. You can kind of just let it build up after you use it initially, and then you're going to have more chances of getting rank 3s off than most other cards are going to be playing on your team because it's not one of those cards you need to spam. So it's very, very good. It's not only efficient, but it's a very good utility and a very good support, all wrapped in one. Just very, very good. It's got enough turns on it to make it last, and it's got a big enough buff to really see an improvement on your team's damage. Very, very good. So obviously something like this is going to be good in every single game mode there is in Grand Cross. Woo! And then his ultimate, Slash of the Thunder Emperor. Inflict 560% of this unit's attack to a single enemy and shock the target for 4 turns. Shock deals 30% of the damage dealt as additional damage at the end of every turn, which could be very, very good. Always more DPS, the better. There's no such thing as too much DPS. His multiplier, of course, is lower than Elizabeth's, 56%. So if you maxed out his ultimate, it'll be 840% damage. So he's still going to provide you with a pretty good amount of damage, especially if you factor in that shock is going to be doing 30% of the damage dealt additionally at the end of every turn for 4 turns. So if you add that all in, it's still going to be a fair amount of damage. On top of the fact he's going to be buffing your entire team with that skill too, which is just amazing. And he's got an AoE skill on his S1, or skill 1 rather, which I feel is a little bit underrated for PvE farming. I think that's a pretty solid PvE farming skill. I know the rank 1 is only 100%. Maybe that's why you'd like to see that up a little bit more. Perhaps 150% at rank 1 would have made him a bit better. I can see where that might devalue him slightly for PvE farming, but I still feel like he might be a bit underrated for that. And again, the defense improvement that he gives your team is outstanding. So not only is he giving you attack, he's giving you defense, he's giving you a little bit of AoE, and he's giving you a nice solid single target damage with damage over time on his ultimate. I mean, just such a good unit. It has a little bit of everything that you'd like in a buffer and utility, and got some DPS to go with it. Why not? Why not, man? So Gill Thunder, very good unit. Sorry, I kind of maybe overhyped him a little bit, but hey, he might be the best SR in the game. Who knows? Now, we got this one. I wanted to throw Kayn in. Now, there are some other SRs that are good as well. Like I said, we're not going to cover everything in the game, but we're going over some of the more core popularized units that are really solid for a lot of things. And Kayn isn't one I would consider good in a lot of different areas, but when you get to more mid to end game, you might want to make use of Kayn. And Kayn is kind of a better unit to utilize because you don't really need to gear him up. You're going to just throw whatever good gear you have on him just to get his CP values up. That way you make sure that you go first when you're fighting raids. Because if your CP isn't higher than the opponent, they get to go first. And obviously you don't want that to happen unless you build a second turn team, I guess. But the reason why I threw Kayn in here is because not because of his skills per se, but his passive. His passive increases the attack-related stats of all allies by 10% in raid. And like we mentioned earlier in the video, if you run a unit on your sub, their passives will still be in effect for your entire team. So if you're running a raid team that you know for a fact you don't need that 4th unit, you don't need that sub to ever come in to help, you only need to rely on your core 3, then you can just throw Kayn in there and get that free 10% attack to all your allies for raids. Simple. That is why you run Kayn. That's the only reason you run him. We're not worried about his stats. We're not worried about who he's linked to. We're not worried about his skills. The only thing we care about is throwing that passive in there as a sub. That way he can just boost all your characters by 10% for raids. That's it. That's all we care about. Nothing else. So Kayn is probably one of the easiest units in the entire game to build up because you literally don't care how you build him up. You just want to run him as that sub for his passive. That's it. So for mid to end game players, you might want to throw Kayn in there if you don't have a better option for attack buffing that you can set as a sub and never even have to use him, but still get use out of him. So that is some of the SRs that I consider top tier in this game for various different reasons and what they can offer to you. It's free to play, guys. Free to play. That's what's very important about these units. Boom. You know, we got our red Elizabeth, our green Elizabeth. We've got our green Gill Thunder. You're noticing a theme here. We have a lot of green units. Green Kayn, which, again, you're not going to be actually using him. You're just going to be using his passive on the sub. And then you've got the 2 SSRs that I feel that are must-have. One of them you're going to get no matter what if you play story, which is going to be King here. But the other one we're going to talk about, and we'll talk about him again in our reroll video. But this King, Sin of Sloth, Blue King, is fantastic. What doesn't he do is an easier question. So he's great in PvP, geared and ungeared. He's amazing in the red bosses. You could throw him really on anywhere you want, to be honest. Of course, there's areas of the game he's going to kind of, you know, be a little bit devalued. Kind of similar like with Gill Thunder and PV farming. But I feel his skill set is so universal. You could really run him in a lot of different areas. There are some, you know, more not free-to-play friendly units that you can get through summoning later on that you'll replace him in certain team comps for certain content, of course, like the Gray and Crimson boss raids, which is fine, you know, the demons. But for PvP, which is going to be very important to a lot of players to getting their gems every week, so you can keep summoning for other better units, he's going to be very crucial. This is a unit that you want to build up as much as you possibly can, as early as possible. And he's going to be great for, again, one of the demons, the red demon. So there you go. And what can this bad boy do? Why am I hyping him up, man? Why? He increases the base stats of all fairy clan allies by 8%. So if you're running a fairy team, there you go. Other than that, you're really not going to be considering his passive too much. But it is there, and there are some pretty decent fairy type units in the game. So don't think that that's a bad passive. But his skill sets are where his real traits lie. His real utility lies. So his skill 1, Spirit Spear, inflicts 200% of this unit's attack to a single enemy at rank 1. At rank 2, inflict 200% of this unit's attack to a single enemy, but Petrify for 1 turn. And Petrify removes all buffs and debuffs from the target. The target will not be able to use any skills, breaks it if target takes damage. So basically what this means is you pretty much shut that unit down until it's their turn again. Now, this doesn't work on all content. Some content, like some of the bosses and stuff like that, they ignore Petrify. Like, you can Petrify them, but as soon as it's their turn, it goes away instantly. But it still does remove, I believe, the buffs and debuffs on certain targets as well, even if you can't fully lock them down. So it kind of varies depending on what content you're in. But in PvP, it's going to work, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. And then, of course, on rank 3, it'll Petrify for 2 turns and inflict 250% of units' attack. So, just a phenomenal skill 1. Skill 2. This skill is even better than the first one. Yeah, it gets better. It's like one of those info commercials. And then there's more. Spirit Spear, Form 8. We're just going to call it Form 8, and then the first one will be Form 3, just to keep it simple. Cleanse all debuffs on all allies. This is very, very helpful. There could be situations where you're in a mirror match and they have a king and they shut you down and it's one of your biggest DPSers and you need them to be available. Boom. You pop your own cleanse with your rank 1 and take care of it. Now, on rank 2, it cleanses like the rank 1, but it also heals 30% of missing HP. And then on 3, it'll heal 50% and then cleanse as well. So, just a phenomenal skill 2. And then ultimate with Fate. His multiplier, of course, is a little bit lower, but it crush all enemies with 420%, 420, guys. Hey, now, of this unit's attack. Now, crush, it ignores the target's resistance. So, I believe that's good against, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put this into a situation. I guess, let's say if you're a blue type and you're taking on a green type, they would technically they would perhaps ignore a lot of damage because they have the type advantage. I believe that's what resistance can do for you. I could be wrong on that. Somebody can let me know in the comment section below that has a little bit clearer understanding of what crush does. But I think that's what that does. It basically it ignores the, damage resistance based on the type disadvantage. I think. I could be wrong or mistaken there, but I think that's what that means. But I could be wrong. But regardless, it does 420% damage, AoE, and at maxed out, it's 630%. And on the ultimate with Fate, when you link to a unit that gives you Fate, it crushes all enemies with 480% of the unit's attack, and then that multiplier is 48%, so it'll go to 720. Okay, so that's pretty much it for King. He's just a solid unit. He's got an AoE ultimate that I believe ignores type disadvantages. I think that's what that means. Again, cross your fingers. And then Form 8 and then Form 3 are both amazing skills. He can Petrify and lock units down, stripping them of some of their things. And then you can also cleanse your entire team and heal you. So he does a little bit of everything. Cleanse, healing, lockdown, damage, and AoE. So, boom. You got Sin of Sloth King. Now, you'll get this guy free to play 100% from story mode. And you'll get him pretty early on. Probably within the first day or two, depending on how hard you grind when the game drops. So, everyone will have King. Which is not a good thing when you're fighting against him early on, because he is super strong. But later on in the game, you'll be very, very happy that you have him. Alright. Now, Big Daddy 7 Deadly Sins Meliodas. Green Meliodas. Counter Meliodas. Whatever you want to call him. You can call him a million different names, but there's one name that he needs to go by, and that is amazing. This is the guy that most players will tell you to re-roll for. This is someone that you want to get from the tutorial multi-summon that you get for free at the start when you're re-rolling initially when you start global. This guy is fantastic. And we're going to go in why. Now, a lot of people argue he might not be good as king, but it really depends on what type of content you're trying to really focus on early game. But in terms of, I think why his unit rating looks a little bit lower here is because they're probably comparing him to a lot of other SSR units, since he technically is summonable. So that would put him in the same jurisdiction as other SSRs. But we're talking purely free-to-play summonable, since this will be on your tutorial multi when you start the game. So if you reroll properly, this unit is free. So thus, he's not going to be put into the same jurisdiction as a lot of SSRs that you have to pull for and hope for RNG to work in your favor, because obviously you can't re-roll in those banners. You can re-roll in this banner, though, that you get with him. Now, he will be in other banners, obviously, but the initial one, if you re-roll over and over and over again, you will have him guaranteed. So that might be why his unit rating looks a little bit lower on the lower end, but it's much greater than that for global players. Trust me. Trust me. But Enchanted Hellblaze, inflict 240% of this unit's attack to a single enemy, inflict 360% at rank 2, and then 600% at rank 3. And he's got 540 base attack as well. And I think the king was like 520. Yeah, 520. His skill 2, his outburst counter. This is amazing. Take a stance, counter a single attack with 100% damage based on your missing HP. So the more damage he takes, the more he dishes back. I'm sure a lot of you kind of recognize that, how he does the full counter in anime. That's pretty much the same concept. Takes a stance, counter a single enemy with 150% damage based on your missing HP. And then, of course, rank 3 will be 250%. Just absolutely phenomenal. Now, he has ultimate with Fate, and then, of course, it's just normal ultimate. Remove all buffs and stances from a single enemy and inflict 490% of this unit's attack to the target. Stuns the target for 1 turn. So it's got a lockdown effect, which is very, very nice and pretty decent damage. Now, the multiplier is 49%, which means it goes up to 735% if you max it out. With Fate, removes all buffs and stances from a single enemy and inflicts 560% with a 56% multiplier, which goes all the way up to 840% damage. So very, very good. With certain links, you know, the Fate links, you can get like defense up and stuff like that, or end up, etc. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Oh, almost forgot his passive. All or nothing. The more HP this unit is missing, the more crit chance this unit gains when using skills. So you could actually build this Meliodas with crit damage and have him there to just take a bunch of damage and then just unleash him. Unleash him. And by the way, that crit damage will work on his countering. So when he does counter, that crit damage will still play a factor. So, you know, this is going to come into gearing up some of your units however you want to build them up. It's going to depend on the player. There's certain ways you can build them. The more favored and more popular way to build a unit is, of course, 4 attack, 2 defense. But certain characters, depending on their skill sets and their passives, or even their stats for example, you might build them up slightly different to get more out of them. So it's really going to come down to the player. And his crit damage at base is 170%, by the way, and 30% crit chance. So whoo! Amazing unit. This is a must when you reroll for global. 100%. But guys, that is the SRs I wanted to talk about. I even threw a couple SSRs there at the end that are also very free to play if you do the things I mentioned. You can build a very strong green team with this. Like I said, you've got a green Mascot Elizabeth. You got a green Gill Thunder that you could run. And then you even got a green Meliodas. So boom, you can make a nice mono green team to start your journey in Grand Cross and get pretty damn far. So there you guys go. Have a good one. Don't forget to subscribe, tick notifications if you guys want to see some more Grand Cross content. I'm going to try and pump out some more tomorrow. I might do a live stream later tonight. I don't know, so stay tuned. But again, hope you guys are all enjoying Until next time, don't forget to subscribe, check notifications, join us in the Discord below. Let's get 50 likes on today's video. And for those Black Clover players out there that are spam disliking on my content because you're trying to get Black Clover back, it's not going to happen. So please stop doing that, because all you're doing is really nothing. So anyways, until next time, have a good one as always. Peace.